Currently, my job comprises both teaching as well as administration, or the academic administration. So, talking about the teaching first, I believe the most rewarding that I find in it is a kind of satisfaction. Satisfaction that you are a useful member of the society. Uh, we are educating the young generations of the lawyers. It is a teacher who instills that, what we say, the passion of learning in the students, which is very essential, be it the critical thinking or innovation of ideas or for the overall development of any society. Number two, in the course of teaching, I believe teachers' passion for learning is also enhanced. You know, when we teach our students, we teach to ourselves also, somewhere or the other. So, our own concepts of various issues gets sharpened better over the period of time. The same sentence which we have been reading gives us a different meaning, different perspective. And that I say the joy of learning. And that is how you feel rewarded for this particular profession. I will also add another factor in this, and that is that when our students, after being graduated and after having worked for a certain number of years, attain certain height in their profession, we feel elated. We, the teachers, feel elated. Well, I take pride in saying that some of my students are now the judges of the High Court, Delhi High Court. Justice Hari Shankar, Justice Manoj Ohri, and others. And my law school, that is a campus law center, is regarded as the best, at least in Asia. And the current Chief Justice of the Bhutan Supreme Court, and the very next senior most judge, Justice Panjor, happen to be my favorite students. So this is about the judiciary, but we find our students, here I'm talking about my students, also attaining the heights like the vice chancellors in private universities. So well, they rise wherever they are. We relate ourselves with them, and we feel proud. Oh, this is really a great, I will say, the satisfaction to any teacher. So in the nutshell, I can say that the students are our wealth, our capital, and then this profession has always been regarded as a most respectful profession. There is a word noble profession, which is attached with this profession. It really earns you respect. Now, coming to my second aspect of the job, that is the administration, I will very frankly say that there is nothing which is rewarding in this. It's a thankless job. It is only when we realize that this is a thankless job we can really do something for the institution. As a guardian, as the administrative head of that institution, not believing in the policy of the appeasement, looking to what my duties are. And when you believe in doing your duties, then you earn bad name. So it's like that. I think the things which are required to be a good law professor are the same anywhere, um, though there may be some differences with respect to any domestic jurisdiction. And before proceeding further and sharing my experiences in this, here I would like to say that this my law school has really produced uh, very good teachers, excellent teachers. I'm also the alumnus of this law school, and therefore I can really tell you better in and out of this. Now I'm reminded of those great teachers who taught me, like Professor Upendra Bakshi, Professor M.P. Singh, and others. These are the teachers who are world famous teachers. And before I proceed further, coming particularly on this good law professors, I will say it is these kind of teachers who have given to the nation the leaders who are serving the India. And there is a testament. Testament is that today the Chief Justice of Indian Supreme Court, Honorable Justice Ranjan Gogoi, is our distinguished alumnus. Along with it, there are other 9 judges, sitting judges I'm talking about, at the Supreme Court. So almost 1/3 of the sitting judges of the Supreme Court is a contribution of Campus Law Center. It has given Solicitor Generals, Mr. Mohan Prasaran, who previously happened to be the Solicitor General of India, Mr. Arun Jaitley, the current Union Cabinet Minister, is again from my law school. So whether it is the cabinet ministers, judiciary, top law officers, vice chancellors, we feel proud that this is the contribution of my law school. What does it mean? It means that this is a law school which believes in good teaching. And good teaching, of course, the teachers contribute a lot in that, even though there are other factors also which are relevant in this. So what I have learned from these great teachers and which I have all through followed in my teaching, I will just put it into 3-4 points. I will say the first thing is that you should know your subjects thoroughly, completely. You should be well prepared what you are going to teach there in the class. Particularly in the initial year of teachings, it is very essential that you keep discussing with your senior colleagues your doubts, your own doubts. And in those initial years, we have learned that you can connect law to anything under the sun, from cradle to grave. Professor Bakshi used to tell us this. That's absolutely true. But perhaps it is before cradle also and after grave. Because one of the subjects which I have been teaching is the family law, the questions of inheritance, the question whether this particular woman is occupying the status of widow, challenging the validity of the marriage. When the husband was alive, this question was not raised. After the death of the husband, this question is coming. Why? Because now the property has to be distributed. So on and so forth. Secondly, I will say that communication should be very good. Good, the meaning of good, I will say simple. It's here that the role of the teacher really comes in, because the students can get knowledge from the books these days, what not. There is a Google Baba, and a lot more information is available online also. But when it is in person, particularly in the classes, the way teachers simplifies the complex things and make the students understand, I will say, I will relate it to the quality of a good teacher. Sometimes we as a teacher don't enjoy in discussing simple concepts. We enjoy more when there is really certain kind of a thing which needs to be told by the teacher to the students. Why? Because they cannot understand this stage. Breaking it, simplifying it, coming down to the level of the students sometimes, and then making them understandable. So, this transmission of knowledge in the process of communication, as Professor Tripathi, my another teacher, used to emphasize, is very essential uh, to be a good teacher, and here the law teacher. And apart from this, uh, you see, the teacher has to be very honest. If he doesn't know the answer to any question put in the class, saying, "No, I don't know the answer. I'll see it and will tell you in the next class." So, this honesty in admitting, because nobody can know everything under the sun. And the teacher, as a teachers, we learn a lot from the questions of our students. So, many a times I admit, particularly in my initial years, I used to admit. And then going in the stake hall, discussing the senior teachers, finding the answer. And then this is how, when I was saying that we also grow academically, internally, and all that. Thirdly, teacher has to be regular and punctual. Simple. Yes, of course, at times teacher may require any leave, but it has to be officially intimated to the students and the office. And punctuality on the time, because in my campus law center we are having 1 hour lecture. So it has to be at least 55 minutes. This is what we expect from us. And then all of us have heard that great saying that a good teacher explains and a great teacher inspires. Oh, yes, this is absolutely true. Our students do get inspired even from the simple words, simple gestures of us. We are not aware at that particular time. But when after some years or many years, we meet our students and then they recollect those instances, that is really, again, I will say, rewarding. Oh, I forget that thing, you remember. And there are many instances when they say, this sentence has really that great impact on my life and changed my life. And that is a great moment of joy for any teacher. Inspiration, motivation of the students, not only of the brilliant, but also of the average, of every student. I mean, at what level and at what occasion there's an interaction of the student. It's not in the classrooms, it is outside the classrooms also. Now, whatever I have said so far was from the point of view of the students, the quality of a good law professor. But apart from this, along with this, a good law teacher, I think, has to be a dynamic person, in the sense to have good publication, research publications, research projects, and then having the network, whatever field of study that teacher possesses. Yes, of course, I'm talking about participation of conference, seminars, moving away from your own place, interacting with other persons, and through that exposure, enhancing the academic personality of oneself should be there. Well, I will split this question into two forms. First at the entry level and then later on. As far as the entry level is concerned, uh, I will say not really so difficult for women. With the now increased, awareness of the women's education and a little bit empowerment of the women, though there's a long way to go, the women are coming up more and more who are taking up law. So if a person, irrespective of man or woman, possesses all everything on the paper, the degrees, the publication, other things, then entry at the law profession, there is no this discrimination. I believe. Now, in my own law school, the ratio of male and female is more in favor of female. But the later part is more important of this question. And that is when it comes to the overall participation of the woman in the whole of the legal profession, then definitely it's very, very difficult for the woman to succeed. Reasons are not far off to find. Obviously, we are talking about working women here in the field of law and they are in teaching profession. Now, this woman has also work at home. There is a little bit change in the society. The change in the society is previously the men were working outside. I'm talking about like 50 years before or 60 years before. And the women were taking care of the household work. But now when the women are also going out and contributing to the family in the economic terms, as a matter of fact, she has to take a double burden. And the double burden is that whatever things she had previously been doing at home, she has to do herself or she has to supervise. Because here in India, Indian families, we do have the concept of those housemaids. But then you have to supervise that. That's one of the things. And another thing is, that I will say patriarchal hangover, which has to face this educated woman, even within educated family. If so long as a teaching thing is concerned, this is perfectly okay with the family, with the other persons. But if apart from the family, she has to take care of certain seminar which is going on in the very law school, or she has to participate outside, and because of which she is late at home. Usually she comes by 5 o'clock, and this time she has come, say for example, by 9 o'clock. Then most of the women are seen with suspicion. They have to explain. So these kind of patriarchal hangover, as I'm saying, still subsist, though there is a change. I will say, what is this? It is what is still going on. If a man comes late at home, late than usual hours, the whole family, including wife and everybody at home, he must be tired. He is taken extra care of his comfort the moment he enters the home. But if the working woman I'm talking about is in the same position, first of all, she has to explain. She has to give the explanation to the female members only, to the husband, to the other persons. Even though the other persons may say in the name of security, safety, we were worried. But then, of course, somewhere or the other, there are studies, we do discuss about this in our various workshops and the gatherings, particularly in my gender justice classes. They are suspected by none else than by their own husbands. And therefore they try to avoid. For the teaching, it's okay, but involvement of these things. And if they have to really progress, succeed, and go out of station, out of country, then also most of the women still face these kind of the problem. It is not light. And because of these things, if these kind of restrictions are there, how can we expect that she will succeed in terms of promotions, in terms of climbing the ladder? I'm aware of very many examples of my classmates, of my seniors, as well as of my students. Okay, let me talk about my students. Both were good students, and later on they joined the profession. Both are going brilliantly. Various kind of students I'm talking about. Maybe that they have joined the litigation, maybe they have joined the corporate firm. Perfect. Later on they get married. Again, very good. No problem so far as far as their career advancement is concerned. As far as the career advancement of the girl is concerned. But after the wedding, the moment they have a child, then those gendered roles come in. Then it is regarded that now this is your responsibility to look after the child. It is not taken as a joint responsibility of both of them. And then of course, first she will reduce her time from the profession. Like if it is in the teaching, she would like to run away immediately after the classes and will have the excuses. If there are other things, so many other things for the corporate life of the legal institution. And then the man is slowly going up. From here they have started till here together. But thereafter he's going one by step there. First she is stagnant there, and then gradually she comes down. So this is a level, he is going up, she is coming down. Not only with respect to the children. When the children have grown, then she is asked again to work. She works, but what kind of a job she will get? We can understand. Because that is the golden period when she is asked to be away from the professional life and take care of the household work exclusively. Okay, fine. Okay, she joins. Then, yes, it's good. I appreciate that there is still somewhere joint family system. So when our parents get old, then again it becomes a responsibility, exclusive responsibility in most of the families for the woman to look after them. She again has to leave the job. So if this is a kind of the things, then how can we really talk about the advancement or the promotion or the success there in the life? I think if we have to talk about the development in the legal education, then we should go back 1 decade more, 3 decades. From mid 1980s, to be very specific, from 1987, there happens to be a paradigm shift in legal education, and that was the coming up of 5-year law schools, integrated 5-year law schools. Previously, the LLB happened to be of 3 years, and that after the graduation in any discipline. But when here in 1987, the first National Law School of India University in Bangalore came up, and then later on there are now so many national law schools. Here they are taking the students immediately after their schooling, which is here 12th standard. And some of the law schools are also giving the degrees interdisciplinary by the name, like not only LLB degree, they call it BA LLB or BSc LLB, or if it is commerce, BCom LLB. And this is how they are calling it, integrated and interdisciplinary. That's one thing. And then came the era of LPG in 1991. India opened its economy. There happens to be the mushrooming of private law schools. First private law schools and then now the private universities. And another development after this happens to be that even IITs, Indian Institute of Technologies, have also started courses on law, master's courses, like relating to IPR or other science and technology related courses. We have Bar Council of India, the authority, which is responsible for the overall legal education, the quality of legal education in India. In 2010, this BCI has established one directorate of legal education, which emphasizing more these days on continuing legal education. They do have certain exercise in the past also on course development, curriculum development committee, CDC. Legal education in India, I will say, is quite dynamic. Even in that 5-year law schools, I would like to make it clear, have not replaced 3-year law schools. It has been 3-year has been supplemented by 5 years. So presently we do have 3-year LLB as well as 5-year LLB courses. Now, lot more new courses have been introduced, like cyber laws, media law, I will say even environmental law is one of those subjects, gender justice, so on and so forth. Another thing which I would like to highlight here is, which is really good, is the introduction of clinical papers, compulsory introduction of clinical papers, because as per the norms of the BCI, the curriculum, it is compulsory, and therefore we are having these clinical papers like moot court, paper on moot court, paper on ADR, alternative dispute resolution, on professional ethics, where the students are trained in skills rather than the theory or the conceptual kind of the things. Now, this is with respect to the growing of the institutions, one development. But then there are other things with respect to these growing institutions. I was talking about National Law School. Okay, if I just compare the My Law School, which is a department in a public university, with just one example, you will find the difference. A student, the fee of the student at the time of admission, which is paid in My Law School, is hardly 5,000 rupees. At national law schools, it must be more than 3 lakh of rupees. And if I take you to private universities, it may be crossing something 7 or 8 lakh of rupees. This is also one of the things which we have to take into consideration. And then these mushrooming of private law schools, quality wise, is very pathetic. I myself have been a member of one of the committees from the UGC, University Grants Commission, to visit certain law schools because UGC has certain scheme that if these parameters are fulfilled by that law school, then it can get certain can avail the schemes of the UGC. So in that context, so I have seen with my own eyes this bad condition of those law schools which I have visited, and otherwise which is being talked about. Even in national law schools, there's a paucity of experienced teachers. And it's here. When previously I was talking about that at traditional law schools, whether it is our Delhi University or it is BHU or it is Pune University, to just name few of the universities, which are charging very marginal in comparison to these NLUs and private universities. They are doing an excellent job as far as their faculty is concerned. They do have the experienced teachers also, and their new teachers are doing wonder because of the reasons that the students here in public universities listen the teacher. We did come across various instances that the students who pay 3 lakh of rupees or 7-8 lakh of rupees don't so easily listen the teacher. If the teacher tries to discipline them, there are certain instances should not have been there, where the student is saying that your salary is paid by my fee. So there is a problem of in many these schools of a discipline. We have also problems. We have problems of infrastructure, more of resources, more. But as far as quality education is concerned, I think these public law schools still are the backbone of legal education. But then I'm really at pains that whenever in my country, India, there happens to be any discussion, any summit on legal education, public universities are excluded from there. This worries me. There happens to be a lobbying to promote the private educations, private legal educations. And therefore, whenever there is any meet, you will find the people from the national law schools, you will find the people from private universities, the private universities who hardly 1 year before has been created. But no invitation comes to the dean or the vice chancellor, perhaps. Why? Because I have not seen the vice chancellors of public universities participating there. So any outcome of those summits, I will say, is bound to be flawed. Public universities, if I'm talking about today, 2019, are still the biggest stakeholders, just in terms of numbers. You know, my law department of Delhi University is having around overall 7,500 students. The intake of law faculty here of Delhi University is close to 2,500 if we include all that, whatever different categories, supernumerary seats are there. And you know how much is the intake of National Law School? It's a batch of 80 students. In private universities also, if two batches they have been sanctioned, it will be at the most 120. So you put all national law schools at one side and only one public university, that is a Delhi University, law faculty on one side. This will be heavier. So how can in any summit, any talk, you cannot give the invitation to the public university? So these are the various things, and then there are also talks where ultimately, why, because from 1987 it's a long way that the product of 5-year law schools have been tested. Why? Because they are not joining, most of them are not joining the bench, they are not joining the bar, they are going to serve the MNCs. One can understand a person who has spent in India 10 lakh of rupees or 15 lakh of rupees in earning the LLB degree would definitely like to earn immediately after having the degree, and therefore they are not interested to go and learn the trial in the trial courts, or go for a teaching noble profession but doesn't earn to that lucrative amount. So the developments are there, and of course both kind of systems are having their own plus and minus points. Well, your question presumes that there are less number of lawyers. And that presumption is a valid presumption. Not only in the field of this lawyers, but also you take any other ratio, whether it is the judges, doctors, teachers. I think everywhere the ratio is not good. The current ratio, only recently in October 2018, in one of the functions, our Chief Justice of India has told this thing, that the current ratio is 1:1800, one lawyer to 1800 population. And of course, which is not a happy signal at all. So one simple answer is looking to the population. Number one, more than 1 billion, around 400 million. India is really going to achieve a dubious distinction of being the most populous country very soon. And then economic growth, whatever economic growth is there, more and more cases are coming in the courts and are bound to come. And therefore, we do need more lawyers here. But the question is not only of the number of lawyers. The question is also of the quality of lawyers. Just now I was talking about the law school. So the kind of law school, good law school only will produce the good lawyers. So that is also a matter of concern. Oh, well, I'm very happy that you have included this in this conversation. First of all, I would like to clarify the meaning of the word gender issues. You see, the meaning of the word gender is still in the stage of evolution. When around 40 years back, this word was used at the United Nations level, it was more associated with women. Here in my country, wherever we find any heading, gender justice or gender empowerment, below that heading, everything related to the woman. So the word gender was associated with women. But now for the last few years, for the last 10 years or so, gender is attracting more this expression, the third gender. So just to get involved with this question, I will say, I will take the meaning of gender with reference to the woman. And here, there can be, a very long answer to this question, but to put it very short, I will answer this question with the help of two documents. One is UDHR and another is CEDAW. Now we say UDHR of 1948 is a document which contains the human rights of persons, human rights of people. And here the other document CEDAW, that is Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, adopted in the year 1979, is said to contain the human rights of women. 1948 document contains the human rights of persons. 1979 contains the human rights of women. Whether woman is not a person, is she not included in 1948 UDHR? It's very essential to understand when we were having UDHR of 1948, why there was a need at the same level, United Nations level, to have this special document, as we say, containing the human rights of women. What is the difference between human rights of persons as such and the human rights of women? There is some difference, which I will quickly try to explain in whatever little time I have here. That's fine. As far as UDHR is concerned, we say it contained 5 classes of rights. Everybody knows that: civil, political, economic, social, and cultural. But when came 1966, and this document was split into 2 different treaties. UDHR is not binding, it's a declaration. These instruments are binding. Why they are splitting those 5 classes of human rights of persons, which are otherwise said to be universal, inalienable, interdependent, into 2 different documents? There are explanations, political explanations of Cold War. But how it affected the women issues? Ever since the UDHR has been split into these 2 documents, the discourse on human rights has really become what we can say a barrier to the fulfillment of the human rights of women. How come? This kind of splitting of 2 rights, civil and political, in one, and the 3 rights in other document has its own implications at the domestic legislations, domestic jurisdictions. My own Constitution of India includes all 5 kind of rights, but in the same manner as was the development at the international level. As far as the first 2 categories of rights are concerned, they are included as fundamental rights. As far as the other 3 kinds of rights are concerned, they are simply put under another chapter, not a fundamental right, another chapter, which is known as Directive Principle of State Policy. What's the problem in this? The problem is our Constitution then says it is only the fundamental rights which are enforceable by law before the courts. The things which are said in the Directive Principles as such are not enforceable. There's a specific article on that. That's a different kind of a thing that our proactive judiciary has interpreted certain provisions of Directive Principle to raise them to the status of fundamental rights. So what is ultimately the picture? The picture is prioritization of human rights. Civil and political rights are given more primacy and they have been made subordinate. Fine. Civil and political right deals with public life. Cultural, social, educational rights operate in private sphere. Who is the player in public sphere? Man. So man's rights are protected. Social rights, cultural rights, educational rights, around which woman's life is woven are not enforceable, and the law is not hearing her here. One thing. Another is our whole human rights discourse, whether it is UDHR or it is those two convention, IC, CPR and the other one, they talk about individual rights. But when we talk about women's right, we need to talk about the collective rights of the woman. Woman as a class. And this document, CEDAW, is based on that. I can give a number of examples as to how the law affects differently the man and the woman. But here, just confining to this question, how right-based approach affects the gender issues. It is because of this right-based approach adopted in CEDAW that in my country here in India, we have the legislations which were previously unheard of, legislations on domestic violence. Unheard previously. Protection of women against sexual harassment at workplace. Unheard. So these are the provisions which are right-based. It is CEDAW which has demolished that wall between public and private spheres. So it is not a matter of welfare, it is not a matter of charity. It is my right to be treated with dignity, simple. Which is now, previously the law was saying, no, it's a private affair. State has nothing to do in that. And therefore, if the woman was beaten up at home by the husband, or there are instances, women beaten up by other, even what we can say, nephews. It was regarded as an internal matter, but now it is not. Since 2005, she has been given dignity at home. And similarly, whatever other example I had given you of 2013 legislation, so many other examples are also there. But this is how we relate it, that she has a right to live with dignity, and therefore in the private sphere, private actors should also be addressed, violation by the private actors should also be addressed by the state, which was not there in other universal, what we are saying, human rights discourse. Why? Because that was more directed against the state and not the private stakeholders. Well, the answer is very clear and prompt. That is no. If I talk about our Supreme Court of India, out of 28 sitting judges, there are 3 judges, women judges, and we are quite happy with this 3 number. Because there happen to be times no woman judge, or at the most 1 at a time. So 3 is a maximum number, which is giving a certain kind of a hope that more and more women judges may join. May be taken rather, elevated to that position. I can share with you one of the latest data of 2018. Our high courts, various high courts, 24 or so, have sanctioned strength around 1,221, out of which it's only 981 which are in place. So all vacancies are not filled up. 1,221, only 981 vacancies are filled up. And you know how many are female judges of High Court? Out of this figure, only 81. So this is a testament as far as data is concerned, statistics is concerned. And if we can quickly also talk about why this is so. You see, particularly if I'm talking about at the higher courts, Most of the judges are taken from the bar. Yes, at the High Court level, judges also come from the lower judiciary by promotion. But most of the appointments happen to be from the bar. And from the bar, these are the senior advocates um, who are appointed, elevated. Do we have enough senior advocates, female? The answer is no. Then how can we expect that there will be an entry of more female lawyers? And again, if we want to know why is it that we do not have more senior female lawyers, in the first part of the conversation, we had discussed these things. If we see the law graduates, equal number of female are entering the law schools, taking the degrees, entering the legal profession also. But when it comes to going up in the ladder, then because of those gendered roles, I will say, it's difficult for them. This is one of the reasons for that they are not there. Yes, we do have a good number of laws for the protection of the woman. Uh, India is also one of those countries which possess very nice laws, good laws. But it is more on papers, I will say. So, one of the challenges I will say is the poor implementation of the laws which have been enacted for the protection of the woman. Just to give you 2-3 examples, we have this law of 1996, PCPNDT we call it, prenatal conception, and it is a law against feticide. There is a provision, the constitution of various authorities, competent authority and the other committees, and very many studies tell us, we can count the years from 1996 till date, that implementation even in terms of the constitution of those committees is not satisfactory. We have a law for, I was talking about Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. It provides a provision for the protection officers. Again, question mark, how many have been appointed? We do have a law on Prohibition of Child Marriage Act of 2006, which talks about the appointment of prohibition officers. But again, question mark, how many have been appointed herein? I will say one of the reasons, our Indian judiciary, particularly the higher judiciary, is world renowned to be a very dynamic and proactive judiciary, which is true also. But the thing which makes it more proactive is this inaction by the executive. Legislature says, executive, you please do this, and it's not being done for years. And then writs are filed. Courts are simply saying, legislature, please do your work, statutory work, and have constituted these authorities, all these officers, etc. That's one of the things. Another challenge I will say is again those social norms, patriarchal social norms. In 2005, we had a very good amendment in our this Hindu law of succession, which has given women the property rights, daughters, as a matter of fact, the daughters, rights in the property of the father after the death of the father, along with the sons. We did have a law right from 1956, but that was with respect to the separate property. 2005 has also given the right with respect to what we call the joint family property. So, law is very good. Here, there is nothing the executive has to do. Here, the thing which has to be done is by none else, but by those who are closely related with you, your blood relation. We had again so many discussions at various platforms whereby we come to know that the sisters, because after the death of the father, the sisters are not getting their share in the property by their brothers. Unless and until, of course, one goes to the court, and in the court, then there are the other, whatever the problems are there, the formal, the system. And then I will make it one of the factors also, the sluggish court system. Yes, unfortunately, Indian legal system, judicial system is painfully slow. And if I talk about other laws relating to the offenses against the woman, particularly sexual offenses against the woman, then the situation is even worse if I talk with respect to the conviction rate. It's even less than 30% conviction rate. So these are really the great challenges for the implementation of those laws which the legislature has created for the protection of the women. I will say one of the main problems of sexual violence in most of the societies, including India, relates to the gendered roles. What gender role? A woman is associated with body, with beauty, with sex, to be used and abused. Gender role or expectation that man is associated with mind, reason, dominance, power. Now, this kind of general gendered belief makes women weak, vulnerable, to be exploited by various means. And here we are talking about in sexual violence through these sexual assaults. Closely related with this is a gendered notion, patriarchal notion, that it is the woman who is responsible for the sexual behavior of the man. Yeah, right from the days of Adam and Eve, the women have been blamed, held responsible for arousing or controlling the sexual urge of the man. So man is not responsible for his sexual behavior. The whole blame is on the woman. And therefore, if the man is not responsible socially, though legally, of course, yes, for his own sexual behavior, then how can we really address this problem of sexual violence? Just take one simple example. Rape happens. Is there any stigma to the boy? Everything is there with respect to the woman. What is the fault of the woman? All fault, all wrong, morally, ethically, legally, you take any standard, is of the boy. But that does not happen. Rather, on the other hand, again, very, very unfortunate. Some political leaders have even said condoning this as just a deviant behavior. Oh, they are young, hot blood. What's wrong if they have done this? Uh, it's really horrible to hear these kind of the persons who are otherwise the public leaders. After the rape, we do hear the principals of the school, of co-educational school, issuing the circulars. Girls don't wear skirts because it will arouse the sexual urge of the men. So this kind of attitude, how the sexual activity, here we are talking about not the activity, here we are talking about the abuse, that this violence is taken, victim blaming, I believe is one of the main reasons for sexual violence. You see, the problem of sexual violence, as a matter of fact, is not related really to sex. It is more related to power. Particularly the extreme form of sexual violence that we talk about, the rape and the other gruesome forms of sexual violence, are not necessarily, these offenses are not necessarily committed out of the lust, sexual lust. Many a times these offenses are committed because the person wants to humiliate maybe the family, maybe the community, or just insult the woman. A woman might have done certain thing which he didn't like. So it is more related to the power relations or the power equations. You see, we find that news, woman of 2 years raped, a woman of 8 years raped. Yeah. So I think this is very clear that a woman, a girl, a child of 2 years and a woman of 8 years has nothing to do with this sexual kind of the thing. Unless and until we really relate it, that the man is feeling that he's exerting a power, dominance, masculinity, expression of masculinity. Then there is this thing also that the honor of the family is related with the sexuality of the woman. And it is because of this reason that whatever example I have given you, we do have so many, unfortunately, these kind of the cases in the countryside, in the villages, where a certain caste system is prevalent herein, that a woman belonging to one caste or class is raped just to teach a lesson to the others. So I will relate it to the power relations, power equations, rather than to simply sex. Oh yes, very much relevant factor. So here, if I talk about violence against women as such, which includes sexual violence also, talking about religion first. You see, in our Hindu society, son is given a special preference. Daughters are less valued. In religion, I'm talking about mythology. Son is known as putra. The meaning of the word putra is one who delivers the father from the hell. So if you want to go to the heaven, so this is a belief, religious belief, you have to have a son. And then we were having also the beliefs that one should have 4 sons. Why? Because when one dies, he should be, when taken to the cremation ground, so on and so forth. Uh, Moving further, culture also reflects many things of the religion. This simple culture that the woman's activities should be controlled. There's a culture. Women should always be disciplined. Again, if I talk about my own Hindu mythology and our that literature, ancient literature, we have those kind of dictates that a woman should never be free. She should always be under the authority of some male. During her childhood, she should be under the authority of the father. When she marries, then under the authority of the husband. And if unfortunately husband dies and she becomes widow, the dictate is she should be under the authority of the son. Oh, mother, under the authority of the son, because she is mother, but she is a female, she is a woman. So this disciplining, there's a culture of put the woman under control. Another thing which I said previously, that the honor of the family is related with the woman, sexuality of the woman plays its role here also. How? Any kind of deviation, sexual deviation, has to be corrected. And that is corrected by violence, physical violence becomes one of the accepted norms. So their honor of the family is to humiliate the family. Here the same principle is operating against her if the family, the other persons found that there is any deviance from the whatever their laid down norms are there. If I'm talking about marital life, in marital life it is regarded culturally, man has a right to have sex with the wife anytime at his pleasure. He may be drunk, he may not be carrying the wife otherwise, he may first beat the wife, so on and so forth. Just one example more I would like to give, which I generally give to my students also. You see, we have a system of marriage in which upon marriage, wedding, the son remains in the house, but the daughter leaves the house. This whole concept of marriage is highly patriarchal. Law doesn't say that, but this is a culture. Now this girl who is born and brought up in this family is not going to stay here. Everybody knows, the girl also knows. So depending upon the status of the family, if she is given a separate room and she is very beloved of the household, of the mother and father and everybody, but still there's an understanding that on the marriage this room will be vacated and maybe used for this and that. So whatever her belongings, other things are there, they are for temporary. Now she goes to live with in the house of the husband. There she has come from the other family. The son of that family, born and brought up, on wedding remains there with all his mother, father, all the persons. It is she who has gone there. And this is also this culture. So now she has to adapt to a new culture, new presumptions, new priorities, new do's and don'ts. You know, it's like a plant uprooted from here and planted. Even the plant needs some time, to adjust to the new settings. So if there is any kind of here deviation from those culture social norms, which will be very simple, how to behave. um, every family may have its own a little bit kind of the style. So if there is any this kind of a thing, there may be violence need not necessarily beating and all that. It may be passing the comments or humiliation remarks, or in simple words, as we say, the mental torture. So all these things which are there in the society, culture, they contribute to the subordinate position of the woman and the violence, various forms of violence. Yes, it's true that India's economy is one of the fastest economies in the world. Even the World Bank has also predicted that if the present growth rate around 7% is maintained, it is going to be fastest economy in the world. But economic development does not ensure the overall development of the society. Along with this economic development, GDP, etc., the society as a whole has to develop. And if I can just share certain data, yes, the number, not the number, but the amount of wealth of the wealthy people in India is increasing. One study from this Business and Sustainable Development Commission recently of 2016, I think, indicates that it is only 1% of Indian population which owns 53% of the wealth. We are having very many reports, United Nations level, which tell us the index of social development. Global Hunger Index puts India at, I think, 84th somewhere level out of 118 countries. United Nations also has global the social index. Out of 148 countries, again, it's in 90s, perhaps 98 or so, the place which India is occupying. I will also try to explain this problem with this, what I will say, the burgeoning population of India. It's a paradox that at the whole national level, the pie is getting bigger and fatter, economic development. But when it comes per capita income, per capita the other development, then the slice which is coming to each individual of that pie gets shrinking. So this growing population also is one of the challenges which comes in along with all these social factors. Along with this economic development, I would also like to add to technological development and this era of LPG. Yes, definitely, there are very many challenges. I will put them broadly into two categories. One, I can say the environmental challenges. This economic development, particularly with this LPG, with open economy, is resulting in the displacement of local people, tribal peoples, issues are coming more and more. The local people and the government is more and more coming against each other. And then environmental concerns. So if we just look for economic development, then we are losing on the side of clean environment. Already the places like this Delhi, where I'm living, we don't have clear air or clean water. Every household has got water purifier, and now we are also getting air purifiers, etc. We do have on the countryside some of the villages whose this earth has really become poisonous because of this economic development. What I can say, the other companies coming here. One of such very famous cases, we commonly call it Bichri case. Why? Because Bichri is the name of the place, village. They are in Rajasthan. In 90s, 95 or 97, the judgment has been given. Wherein certain chemical industries had been established there. And this has been established not for primarily use of India, but for the purpose of the export for those countries which have prohibited the manufacture of this chemical in their own countries. That's one example. Another example is of this place of Neemrana. You know, every other person in Neemrana, I have heard, is having some kind of a disease, particularly cancer. Why? Because of certain companies, MNCs operating there, the water has become poisonous. So the companies coming from the West, they have very high environmental protection standards. We have very good laws here. Laws are good. But when it comes to the implementation, it's not in the high spirit. And therefore, this is how at the countryside, village level, why? Because these plants, power plants, or if we are talking about other things, dams, etc., are more there at the countryside. These are the problems which Indian people are facing. Now, coming to the second challenge, which is more of a cultural clash. And here, not that much, the factor of economic development is not that much relevant, as is of a very sudden exposure to what we can say, to anything. Because there has been a revolution of technology here in India. Person may not have many other basic things, but he may be having the mobile. It's a good market. India is a good market for those for selling any product. And here we are talking about there, for example, of the mobiles. Internet is easily available, and through internet, one person can watch anything. A new interpretation kind of is given to the freedom, to the liberty, to the individual rights. When they see the other cultures, they relate themselves with that. They want to be like that. Many examples, but if I take one example to specify it, young persons at the countryside villages are starting asserting their right to marry to whomsoever they want to marry. And then whatever that community, that clan is having the restrictions on that, if the girl is not behaving as per their settled norms, then there are cases where the daughters are killed by none else than by her own parents. So these kind of developments have also brought a clash, cultural clash. I'm nowhere saying who's right and who's wrong, but definitely there is not only generational gap, a cultural gap between these two. Perhaps at both sides, work needs to be done. Um, so these are the more cultural problems on the countryside.